Okay, I think we are live now.
Yes,
We
sir.
can initiate.
Yes, sir. You are live now.
Yeah. So hey, hi, hello, all the Facebook friends, seniors and junior who are watching online discussions under the heading Live Pharma Coalition. Live Pharma Coalition brought to you various pharma experts from the R&D, research and development, academic, quality control, QC, quality assurance, QA, marketing, sales, packaging, regulatory, supply chain, finance, HR, and other pharma department every month. Uh, this will enlighten the knowledge about the current happening and the future in various department, subfield of the pharma at a single glance. To begin with online discussion today, under the heading of Live Pharma Coalition, first Facebook live webinar. In today's first Facebook live webinar, we have pharma expert speaker from the academic, R&D, pharma marketing, business development department, also a renowned scientist and my classmate, Mr. Vishal Pendarkar from Singapore as a panelist. About Vishal Pendarkar, Vishal, he is a senior manager in the Vivo Pharmacology, Discovery and the Preclinic Sciences. He is a drug discovery and development scientist with a 16 year of industry experience in translation medicine. He started his career in discovery of the small molecules in CNS disorder. Before joining the EDDC, work on the hepatitis C, pandemic influenza and other infectious disease. He has experience working in the BSL-3 animal facilities in Singapore and HK, where he worked as a highly pathogenic avian influenza mouse models. In EDDC, Vishal was a part of the team that covered the ETC 159, which is now in the phase 2 clinical trials. Although the pharmacologist by training, he is ever willing to learn from the fellow research, maybe in new technologies, business modules, new biology, and new ideas that promise to the fuel innovation. He is interested in the undergoing diverse domain of the drug discovery process, from the chemistry to toxicology, from targets and pathways to the clinical outcome, from understanding biology to develop new treatment. Thank you so much. Now over to Vishal.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Vishal here. And thank you, Raman, for the kind introduction. I hope I am audible to everybody. Someone can nod. Can anyone confirm? Yes, fantastic.
Yeah,
so, thank you so much, Raman, for inviting me for this webinar and for the kind introduction. I'm very happy to be a part of this Live Pharma Coalition that you have organized. And this is being the first of many occasions that I think you will organize such webinars to enlighten the healthcare professionals. Thank you so much. And I would, the reason I wanted to be a part of this is because when I was told about the speakers that were going to join this webinar, so I will briefly, touch upon each of them and how they are doing fantastic work in their each profession, and what the topic they would of course give in details. Coming back to my experience, I would say that I am basically a scientist in translational medicine. And as Raman mentioned, I'm always willing to learn new things. And something that is not been, covered in the webinar in the introduction was that I'm also interested to learn about new startup opportunities, patenting, and areas where the discovery and the research that we do in our labs can be commercialized and it can reach to the market. So that is one area of my interest. I just wanted to add. I would not take more time now. our first speaker today is Dr. Atish Mundada. So he has been a very exceptional scientist and academician for many years. Today, he is going to speak on role of pharmacy professionals in manufacturing of bulk API. And this is becoming very interesting and very important for pharma industry, especially for India. We may have been heard of names like hydroxychloroquine and how it was manufactured in India and how it has become important drug in the fight against COVID. So I think conversations like this bring more insight into what pharma professionals in academics, in marketing, in research are doing. And it's also good time for students to connect to these webinars because they can learn from the experienced people who have become a part of the pharmaceutical development and marketing process. Our second speaker, Pankaj Kharabe, is going to talk about plasma therapy in treatment of COVID-19. It's again a very hot topic in current scenario, and we will have enough time for few questions you may have for Pankaj and for myself. Raman is obviously a very successful product marketing professional, and he has vast experience in again taking some of the newly available drugs to the patients. So he's one who plays that role. And Dr. Prakash Chander, he is a business development in a pharma company who has an extensive experience again, right from preclinical to clinical and translational medicine, all the way to patenting, and now he's in business development. So he has a very wide array of experience in pharma industry. So with that, I am looking forward to as much as you are looking forward for these talks, I am also looking forward to these presentations, and I'm so happy to learn more from my colleagues. I think I'll hand it over to Raman or Atish, who would take the first presentation. Back to you, Raman.
Yeah.
Or
Thank
Atish.
you so much, Vishal. Just I will introduce now our first speaker, Atish. Dr. Atish Kumar Sri Krishna Mundada. He is a M.Pharm PhD in Pharma Sciences. He is a associate professor in pharmaceutics, SNJB, SSDJ College of Pharmacy, Nashik, Maharashtra State. His award and recognitions: he is a gold medalist from the Government College of Pharmacy, Amravati, first in the final B.Pharm, UGC fellowship from the postgraduate students, M.Pharm, travel grants from the Bharati Vidyapeeth Deemed University to present a research paper at the 21st FAPA 2004 Bangkok, Thailand. Biography including in Mark, Who and Who's under the Science and Technology in 2009. Travel grants from the DST, New Delhi, to present the research paper at 38 CRS 2011, Ireland, USA. Travel grants from the University of Pune to present a research paper on 39 CRS 2012, Cube, Canada. And he has a lot of the professional achievements. So now I will request Dr. Atish Mundada to share his screen. So when you look at the professional achievements, so total experience of 17 years, Atish he has delivered the lecture at the conferences. So 12 number of the conferences he has given his talk. Atish, you can share your slide. Various book he has published. He has published the 2 international and the 2 national book he has published. Research publications, 27 international and 18 national research publication he has done. Now over to Dr. Atish Mundada for his topic. He is going to discuss with us on the role of pharmacy professional in the bulk API manufacturing after COVID-19 scenario. Now over to Ashish.
Thank you, dear. Thank you for a nice introduction. Hello, listeners. Very good morning to one and all. I know we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is a really bad situation throughout the world. But on the other side, I will say that this can prove a blessing in disguise for pharma industry. As our panelist mentioned regarding hydroxychloroquine, the drug which is being supplied by India to whole world, and even US, UK, European countries were looking at us for getting the supply of that API from India. So I'm going to focus my talk on role of pharmacy professionals in the bulk API manufacturing after this COVID-19 scenario. And it is being rightly said by CPHI worldwide that emerging markets are growing in the importance for API firms. Let me tell you, API is nothing but it is active pharmaceutical ingredients. And whenever any pharmaceutical formulation is prepared, the most important part in formulation is API and excipients. And this market is growing in importance because pharmaceutical preparations are required worldwide. API suppliers that can prove security of their supply chain from raw materials through to ingredients are likely to be considerable, having demand from pharmaceutical firms all over the world. So we have big opportunities lying in front of us as Indian pharma professionals that we can carve our niche in the field of API manufacturing. And regarding that, my discussion topics will be covering the opportunities which lies in front of us. While grabbing those opportunities, there will be some challenges which we need to overcome. And last, we'll be talking about the action plan, how we should plan our activities to grab all these opportunities and tackle the challenges which are there in front of us. Let me tell something about the background. API production and its supply is a truly global business. During early 90s, India was world leader in API manufacturing, but slowly China captured that market with cheaper products. At that time, the China was providing the APIs which were 40% cheaper than Indian counterparts. And that is where India lost their leadership in API manufacturing and China took over. The global API market is estimated to reach around $245 billion by 2024 from present $185 billion. 40% of APIs which are being required throughout the world are being produced and supplied by China. And this chain is actually disrupted during this COVID-19. And because of this disruption, the whole pharma world is being disrupted. And that's why the pharma industries and pharma manufacturers all over the world, they are looking after for some alternatives to the China. And I think it's my personal opinion that India can have the chance of regaining its previous glory where we were a world leader in 90s. So there is a fierce competition right now for low cost and higher volume API sector. As I said earlier, China is providing the APIs which are 40% cheaper than India. And here we have to take care of high volume production and in-time delivery. So present situation of Indian drug market is that it is importing around 70% of their total bulk drugs from China, which is not a good sign being a pharma professionals. Actually, to be very honest, even paracetamol, which is required for preparation of basic frozen, is being imported from from China. And this is the reason because of which even Modi government has put a ban on import of around 38 drug molecules and APIs from China, as this chain of supply has been disrupted during this COVID-19. This is the glory of Indian pharma industry. Industry directly and indirectly provides employment to over 2.7 million people. So we have a good chance of increasing the employability. Industry generates around $11 billion of a trade surplus every year. So trade deficit can be taken care of if we increase the generation of API by pharma industries. It has attracted more than $2 billion FDI inflows for last 3 years, which is a good sign. It accounts for around 60% of global vaccine production. Around 70 to 80% of the DPT vaccines are exported from India, and it is being demanded by WHO. And same is the case with measles and pertussis vaccine. And it is really a pride moment for all of us to talk about this, that 1 in every 3 pills which are consumed in US is being produced by the Indian generic manufacturers. 25% of the formulations which are there into UK market, they are from Indian market. So as we are talking about different avenues which are available to us, no doubt we have some opportunities which we need to take care of. We have to tackle. These are the opportunities which are there. We have highly skilled workforce. Over 225,000 pharmacy students graduate from Indian educational system, as compared to around 17 to 18,000 odd people which gets graduated from US educational system. We have availability of diverse patient pool that makes India as a good hub for a clinical research. And in comparison to China, even we do have a labor cost efficiencies which can provide a significant competitive advantage over our counterparts. Another important opportunity which lies in front of us is leveraging the patent cliff. There are around $251 billion US sale which is going to be off patent in next 4 years. And we are world leader in ANDA filing. We are the top rankers in US ANDA filing. So Indian industries, generic industries can increase their ANDA share and can increase the faster time to reach to the market with all the generic kind of products which can leverage the patent cliff which is going to be created in next 4 years. Another important opportunity which lies with us is that we need to put our footprints into under-penetrated international markets like Japan, Latin America, China, Africa, and Indonesia, to name few. Let me give an example. In Japan, the previous year's sale for pharma products was around $85 billion, and India's share into that market was lesser than 1%. Which needs to be taken care of. It cannot be neglected. Japan is also a crucial and important market where from we can increase our trade. Another important opportunity is that we can leverage the India's strength. India's strength lies into IT and ITES, information technology, and information technology enabled services can decrease the deficit which is there with the doctors and number of doctors and physicians which are available. It is being said that we have around 29 doctors behind every 10,000 people. Whereas in case of China, it is around 43 doctors behind every 10,000. And if you talk in terms of US, there are around 111 doctors behind 10,000 population or people. So we need to increase the consumerization, and that consumerization can be increased by OTC policy. So that needs to be taken care of. For this particular thing, we have to take help of IT and ITES to have that kind of apps which in the remote places can help patients, though they are not having access to the doctors, that can be taken care of by, at least for the elements which can be at initial stages, can be taken care of by patients themselves. So to have and grab these opportunities, there are few challenges which lies in front of us. First one is that government will have to take care of this particular challenge, that we'll have to create a long-term investment plan. Government should try to create a stable platform for pricing and policy environment, which is really a big concern through the point of view of investors, because government keep changing these policies every now and then. And another important thing is that whomsoever is interested in producing and manufacturing these pharmaceutical products will have to ensure the availability and accessibility of all these drugs at affordable cost. And I think we are doing it right now. Another important challenge which is there in front of us is everybody talks about lack of capabilities of Indians in innovation space. It is true that there is limited talent pool with advanced skills. There are around odd 15 to 20,000 students which gets enrolled for PhDs in pharma every year. Whereas in case of US, there are around 1 lakh students which keeps enrolling for PhD. So you have a good talent pool which can help you in increasing your innovation space. Even there is a limited government support research ecosystem which can help in decreasing this deficit. Again, there is a gap between the college curriculum and industry's requirement. Every time when we interact with industry people, they point out this thing, that the curriculum which you deliver and the things which you talk about, it is absolute, and right now people are talking about something else. So that kind of things needs to be incorporated into the curriculum. And last is poor collaboration, which is there between government institutes and industry, which government will have to think upon and will have to increase this collaboration to have our capability increased into innovation space. We are over dependent and over reliant onto China for our intermediates and APIs. Around 70 to 80% of the India's requirements by volume is being fulfilled by China, and it is being disrupted during this COVID-19. So this is a wake-up call for all of us, not only for all of us, but for the pharma manufacturers all over the world, that you cannot rely on to the one suppliers. And India can be the next best alternative which is available to the pharma manufacturers all over the world. We need to increase the government support in this case, and we have to tackle the infrastructure facilities which are available to us for manufacturing of intermediates and APIs. Another important challenge which lies in front of the pharma manufacturers or API manufacturer is that we will have to keep a promise of high quality, reliable suppliers of medicines. We cannot be casual in making the product and not attaining the required quality concerns of regulatory authorities. So we need to have a greater scrutiny from regulators on the quality norms, and we will have to invest in upgrading the quality standards so that we can reach up to the mark of the quality standards which has been set for by various drug regulators. So when we are comparing and talking about China, being they are world leader right now into API manufacturing, if we need to take that post or take that particular lead into API manufacturing, we'll have to basically understand the market and the initiatives which are being taken by the Chinese government. China and India, where is the difference lies? The difference is being given. Lower in China, there is a lower capital in expenditure requirements due to large SEZ zones. The SEZ zones which we have, they have 10 to 15 folds more SEZ zones as compared to ours. And I hope everyone knows what special economic zones means, where common facilities are there for effluent treatment. They have subsidized rates for electricity and water supply, and so on and so forth. Even the borrowing cost of Chinese government is lesser, which is around 5 to 7% as compared to 11 to 14% in India, which is a big deal to take care of. And lower logistic cost is there in China, around 1% of total cost in China. If it is being compared with Indian scenario, it is around 3% for India. Then lower conversion cost is there because labor and electricity cost in China is relatively cheaper as compared to the India. And supportive R&D ecosystem. When I was going through the literature, I got this very important article that in China, they have started 1,000 talent plans where they are attracting the China-born scientists for working towards R&D and work on these kind of APIs and intermediates and increase how productivity of all these kind of things can be increased. So that is a good sign. And somewhere, even our government will have to start these kind of plans. So I have some action plans which I wish to show and share with you all, because all these things will, I think, will help India to tackle the Chinese counterparts if we want to carve our niche into the API drug manufacturing world. So first of all, what we will have to do is we will have to increase our capability on the quality front, not only onto the quality front, but we will have to also engage with regular and deeper engagement with the regulatory authorities, because if the regulations and the norms are changing from regulatory authorities, we should be aware about it. And that's why we should have a regular and deeper engagement with the regulatory authority people all over the world. Second important thing is that this is my personal opinion, again, that we need to have an independent ministry which is taking care of pharmaceuticals. Unfortunate part in India is that pharmaceuticals somewhere is partly being taken care of Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, and on the other part, some areas of pharmaceuticals are being governed by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So somewhere we are like getting into a tricky situation. We are not able to convince one of the industry that how important the pharma world is and how trade deficit can be decreased by increasing the attention towards the pharma world or pharma industries. So what I feel is that government should have a complete independent ministry or Ministry of Pharmaceuticals to simplify policy making and expedite the investment approvals which are there pending with other ministries. And next important thing is that it will protect and promote the industry's interest, because that industry will be actually taking care of only pharmaceuticals. So that can help us in promoting the industry's importance and interest. Next action plan, which I feel, is that we should focus on API manufacturing. We should create more dedicated zones for manufacturing of APIs. As I said, SEZ should be increased. Number of SEZs can be increased, where we can give the dedicated zones for manufacturing of APIs. And we need to decrease the lower cost of the borrowing, which is around 11 to 14% in India as compared to China. In China, it is being available at 3 to 5%. So that needs to be taken care of by government. And last important action plan, which I feel through the point of view of academics, is that we should create an anchor educational institution which will be well funded by government to just carry out the research activities in these kind of areas. And we should accelerate the greater collaboration in the innovation programs, so that not only into ANDA filing, we should be leader and leading into the NDA filing as well. These are the things which I feel can be taken care of in terms of action plans, not only by pharma professionals, but also by the government. So it needs to be a symbiosis between pharma professionals and Indian government to have join hands together to increase the productivity and to decrease the trade deficit with the help of pharma world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Atish. You can stop sharing the screen. Go to Vishal. Vishal, any questions would you like to ask Atish?
First of all, fantastic presentation, Dr. Atish. It was really very good that you brought upon. You covered so many aspects of API manufacturing in just, I can tell you, in 17 minutes.
Thank you.
And it was amazing because you covered the strengths. You covered what are the strengths with India. Chemistry being our strength, as everybody knows, we have been manufacturing for so many years. You covered weaknesses as well. You compared India versus China, strengths and weaknesses. You also spoke about the opportunities that lie ahead in terms of a post-COVID-19 situation, where the whole world is relying on only one supplier. And so you covered the opportunities as well as you covered the threats, because definitely China is a bigger threat. And then again, it's good to talk about all the weaknesses and strengths and opportunities, but nobody talks about the action plan. So you also covered, you gave an action plan. You didn't even just give a problem, but you also tried to give a solution, which is very important. You spoke about the policy issues that government should adopt. You spoke about the ministry. You spoke about the students, how they can align themselves to the needs of the industry. So I think all in all, it was a fantastic presentation. I hope this presentation is recorded and people can go and watch again when it is, whenever they have time, who missed this opportunity. I do have some questions, if you might.
Yeah, most welcome.
I will check let me check the Facebook first. If there is any question, I will first ask those.
Yeah.
So currently, there are not any questions. So I will ask the questions that I have.
Okay.
You certainly mentioned that the another strength of India is information technology, and you very nicely connected these two dots. You said that there need to be and probably we need a separate webinar for how IT and pharma can come together to this. So there is one part. Do you think that there is one question that I have, and also you can elaborate more on that, is about the confidentiality, because somehow in all these processes, right? What one thing I seriously feel when we work with people is we do not treat confidentiality very seriously. Because whenever there is an API manufacturing is happening, that is an opportunity for India, because we have seen that in Chinese manufacturing cases, there are other copies of drugs being made, or people, kind of make copies and then divert the synthetic processes. So the faith, the trust that is lacking in currently in Chinese manufacturers, we can probably have, we can show ourselves that we are more trustworthy, we are more not just capable, we are capable, but we are more trustworthy. I also know that the trust for Indian companies was shaken because of many different reasons, and the confidentiality issues. So any thoughts on that?
Actually, IT-enabled system can help in decreasing the number of doctors which we have right now. There are around 23 doctors behind every 10,000 people. So it is not possible for all patients to be taken care of by the doctors. So in that sense, I was talking about IT-enabled systems or services can help in increasing the consumerization of the pharmaceuticals. Because unless and until consumerization and unless and until our pharmaceutical and products reaches to the remotest place, our increase into the expenditure and increase into the productivity will of no use, because we cannot just rely on to the export. We will have to ensure that the products are being sold into our country as well. Another important thing which you spoke about, the reliability. Even I have two examples from China. They had a problem previously. They had a problem with two products. One was heparin and another one was valsartan, which was being spoken about into world pharma market like anything. European industries were challenging that there is some quality issues with terms of valsartan and in case of heparin as well. But the problem is not only regarding the quality issues. The problem is regarding their policies. Now, all of a sudden, they have stopped the export of the APIs and intermediates. So what has happened? Right now, the essential products like antihypertensives and antidiabetics are not available in the Indian market. This has happened just because of the over-reliance onto the one supplier. And in that case, whole world is looking at us because we are very much ahead in terms of our capabilities and in terms of our workforce as compared to China. So can we focus on that particular area that we can increase our productability and we can increase our reliance and we can have that trust from all over the world, because China has backstabbed in this particular situation because hydroxychloroquine was being provided to whole world by India. So somewhere whole world is having that faith into India and Indian government as well. Right now, India is the image of India in whole world is quite raised, and that can help us. And as a pharma professional, we can take advantage of it. And that's why at the beginning of a session, I said this COVID-19 scenario can be a blessing in disguise for Indian pharma industry. Over to you, Vishal.
Yes, thank you very much for the explanation. Yeah, I do agree. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, a golden opportunity for all the pharma companies and the pharma professionals. Now it is up to us how we utilize that opportunity, right?
Yes,
and then we need help from different areas, like you said, the ministry and because you mentioned about heparin and you gave a lot of very good numbers on the manufacturing of API. How much, if you know in your mind is okay, otherwise it's fine. How much biologics do the Chinese supply to the market, like antibodies and vaccines?
Actually,
if you have in mind.
No. I do have the data of that as well. China dominates this particular area. The products which are based on fermentation, drugs like antibiotics, your essential vitamins and hormonal pills. So somewhere we will have to increase that biosimilars. We will have to increase our capability in manufacturing of biosimilars and other complex drug molecules. And that is actually the challenge which lies in front of our pharma chemists. or pharma professionals which are doing their PhDs. So these can be taken as a task or a challenge, or even government can give some grants to various PhD aspirants to work on these particular areas. As I said, China has started the talent hunt, 1,000 talent hunt. 1,000 talent plan. So same kind of plan can be worked by the government, where people are dedicatedly working on these kind of things and can come up with some particular solution which can help in increasing our productability of all these kind of products for which we are over dependent onto China, and even whole world is dependent onto China for that particular reason.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And yeah, you rightly said, I mean, I did not have the numbers, but biologics is a major market along with the small molecules. And if that also is dominated by China, and, you know, in we had Hopkins Institute, we had Hindustan Antibiotics 50, 60 years back, where we used to be the dominant player in those times. And somewhere along the way, we have lost the opportunity to the Chinese manufacturers. Maybe it's a time to...
cost of the ingredients, which was going higher. And that's why whole world started going. Even our manufacturers started importing the drugs and intermediates from China. The reason behind that was only the cost. So somewhere Indian government will have to give or increase their subsidies so that we can also produce the API and intermediates at a lower cost and at a higher volumes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Atish. I think I will, because there are no other questions in Facebook, I think I will stop here so that we can, in interest of time, we can continue.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Atish.
Yeah, thank you.
Raman, can you go take over?
Yeah, we will go ahead to now the next session. Okay. So here I will request now Pankaj. Prakash is there online? I don't think so. We will go on to the second for Pankaj. Pankaj, by that time you can just start sharing your screen. Pankaj's topic is Dr. Pankaj. He is a director of the Ultrachrome Innovative Private Limited, and when it comes to his topic, dilemma of the plasma therapy in the treatment of the COVID-19, Dr. Prakash Kharabe, he is a B.Pharm and he has done his MRES from UK and PhD also from the UK. So now regarding the topic, like dilemma of the plasma therapy in the treatment of the COVID-19, I will hand over it to now the Dr. Pankaj Kharabe. Over to Pankaj.
Thanks everyone, and as well as the is watching my this presentation. And my topic is the dilemma of plasma therapy in treatment of COVID-19. Actually, the plasma therapy we have tested. We have used this particular therapy for the surgery as well as the ortho surgery, and we got the tremendous achievements after using this technique for the surgery and ortho surgery. And Miss, I can share some of these evidences based on that one. And right now, Miss, several any researchers and other countries, they have mentioned that this technique would be helpful for the treatment of COVID-19. But there are certain, some people say it is the successful, some say it is the challenging, some say it is not that much advantageous. So, Miss, based on my previous experience, how we use this therapy for the treatment of the surgery and ortho surgery. So, could this technique, Miss, after getting this success, could it helpful for this Miss treatment of this one? And if it is successful, then where Miss, some people say it is not that much effective. So, what are the challenges? Miss, why it is not effective? So, I have put some of the challenges, some of the reasons, some of the points, highlight some of the points of that one. Miss, in my next slides. Actually, I want to say, show some of the pictures. Actually, it is showing some disheartening. This is the diabetic foot ulcers previous. And this is with this therapy, we have cured this one, and this is complete healing. Okay, this is the sign of this good achievement of this plasma this therapy for the healing of the diabetic foot ulcers. Next is that this is the patients who have the electric shock, and his foot was extremely damaged. So what we have done the drilling of the foot so that the stem cells along with these plasma therapy, it can activate the growth factors. And if you see, this is the previous this injury. After that, it is 50% is recovered and it is complete healed without giving any medicines. We have healed this this particular injury with this plasma therapy. Now, next one is the neuropathic foot ulcers. Neuropathic foot ulcers, it is some of the pressure ulcers which is inbuilt with that built with the particular patients. And if you see, this is the complete hole which is occurred in this particular patients. Now, these particular patient, if you see, this is the complete one of the hole which is occurred because of that osteomyelitis. So we remove that bone. After that, if you see, with the success of this particular plasma therapy, it is complete healing. There is no any sign of any injury you can see later on. We see it gives a natural healing. We see it is the curative type of the surgeries which we used for the treatment of these particular injuries. Even this is one of the patients which are the 72 years old man, and he has one of the crush injury. With this therapy, if you see, there is the development of granulation tissues which is wrapped around his bone and this bony hair, and it is completely. I have some of the pictures which means many of this one. I have the evidences which give some of the success of this particular therapy for the surgery and orthosurgery. Now, with this one around in 2018 to 2019, means we have used this therapy, and around these 593 patients we have successfully treated and healed with this plasma or PRP therapy, which includes 21 venous pressures, venous ulcers, means it is the varicose ulcers. There is no any medicines which can heal these particular varicose conditions. It is very, very tough. No any medicines, no any surgeries. Even the radiologists also tried to cure this one. Even they are also failed with this one. But we have successfully treated this patient with this therapy. Now, next is the chronic ulcer with infections. Infection is the big problem, very big problem. And in that case, if any person, if any patient has a diabetes, then curing such diabetes with the infection is quite difficult, because comorbidity also along with that one. So we have tried the antibiotics, but no any evidence. We did not get any achievements with that antibiotics with this one, but we got the achievements with this particular therapy. There is electric shock burner, means around 12% patients we have treated with this therapy. Diabetic foot ulcers, I mentioned that one, around 198 patients within this time duration we have healed. The 28 bed sore patient is another intractable injuries. We have treated with this particular with this therapy for this particular diseases. Neuropathic pressure ulcer, which I have previously shown some of the slides, and around 12 patients who are suffered from these neuropathic pressure ulcers, we have treated with this therapy as well. Gangrene patients, gangrene generally it is occurred if there is occlusion of the blood flow to that particular area. Mostly it is the fingers or the legs or the fingers, and it is very difficult to cure this particular gangrene. And so in that case, we have to either amputate the fingers or like that one. But we have successfully used this technique for the treatment of this one. One is the abdominal cox. It is another one of the success we have achieved with this particular therapy. Now, what are the significances? Means what are the advantages of this particular therapy? I want to say. And when we tried this therapy, means we didn't give any antibiotics or any inflammatories. We have prescribed to the patients. Means without these medicines, we have healed these particular diseases. And there is no need of any antimicrobial dressing. There is no need of any surgery or debridement. Debridement means whatever the necrotized tissues which are present on that wounds, means we have to remove that one. And the surgery means just like the amputations, means these are the part of the surgeries. We don't means go through this through this one surgery on the debridement. Means without this one, we have healed these conditions. No need of reconstruction or screen grafting or flaps. Flap means it is the generally what we do. We remove some of the tissues, healthy tissues, and we put on that particular or wrap on that injured area. So ultimately, this is what is we have the grafting we have done. That grafting will ultimately will adjust with that compatible with their skin, and it recover that particular injuries. But without this one, we have created this particular means all those comorbidities. Okay, the success of this, it also the efficiency is very high as compared to antibiotics or any other medicines. Means I have seen minimum 15 days we have cured these patients, and it takes around the 7 months, maximum 7 months. Means it depends on the size as well as the depth of the wounds and even some of the age of that particular patients. These are the factors we have seen. So based on that, it takes sometimes the longer duration for the treatment of this. So we have covered some of the these injuries or the disease like that. Osteoarthritis, we have successfully used this one. Crush injuries, chronic infection I mentioned, bed sores, pressure ulcers, gangrene, varicose, osteogenesis. Even we have developed the nerve bone to the patients. Around 1 foot nerve bones we have developed to the patients. And the patient is around 72 years old. So these are the achievements of this one. Now there is, what are the challenges? Okay, it is good for particular that surgery areas, but if we use this for the COVID-19 treatment, would it successful or not? And if we want to make the successful, what are the challenges which we have? So I mentioned some of the points. The plasma therapy is autologous. Autologous means the whatever the plasma or the antibodies or the platelets or the growth factors which are effective for healing those wounds or injuries, they are only effective on that particular patients. Means if I take that plasma for that from one patient, only that patients we can use for this particular therapy. Means I cannot use that plasma or growth factors or the antibodies of that patient to another patient to heal his wounds. So that is the autologous. So this is the one challenge of this one. Second thing is that the concentration of growth factors or antibodies which is present in that plasma, it depends on the age of the patients. Means if the patient is more than the 60 or 70 years old, it becomes very difficult to cure that one because the growth of concentration of this one is very less. If it is very less, so it becomes the infiltration of those particular growth factors to that particular area will be less. So the healing time which is taking for that particular patient will be delayed or extended. So this is another factors we have seen that it affect the particular that healing or the healing of these particular injuries. Next one is the concentration of growth factors varies with the diet of the patients. This is another important factors I have noticed. Those patients who are drinking more teas, I have seen that one. Means I have around 25 patients I have seen who are consuming more teas during this particular therapy. I have seen that concentration of growth factors or these other active components are very less in that one. Means it is normal. It is not that much activate. Means a particular area. And I have seen that most patients who are taking the vitamin C, the tablets or any food supplements which are present in the vitamin C, they are the higher concentration of these particular growth factors I have seen. Even the healing ratio of this one is quite remarkable. So we have seen, if it is taking around 5 months for the healing of that one, that healing can be around 2 months, 2 to 2.5 months I have seen. Means 50% accelerated the rate of the healing of the wounds I have seen. So diet is again very important to the patients. Means I have noticed that one. Next part is that it is the effectiveness of plasma therapy varies with these preparation techniques. Now most of the people mention that, means most of the, I have seen that in the researchers or doctors, they mention that this therapy is not that much success if we try to the COVID-19. But actually I want to say that what are the preparation techniques they have used, because the plasma itself, means what we do, we take the EDTA bulb, in that we take the plasma, means the blood, and we centrifuge it for the 12 to 14 minutes, for the 7 to 10 minutes. If we use this spinning after centrifugation, then whatever the plasma we are getting, the plasma has the three different layers. One is the upper portion, which is called the plasma poor, platelets poor plasma. Next is the interstitial, and third one is the buffy coat. Buffy coat contain a higher number of the platelets, antibodies, growth factors, dense granules, they are present in that one. So which particular part they are taking that one? So it is not mentioned. So the concentration varies with the layer of that particular plasma layers which they are considering. So this is again the important factors which might be, I can assume, affect this healing of this COVID. Again, I have seen, this is not that much important part of this one, the route of administration. Means if in surgery, what we do, we put the local administration of this particular plasma therapy or the antibodies, or we can say the growth factor, dense granules. Means where is the affected area, we put directly to that particular area, local injection we can say. But if it is the COVID-19, if it is infected whole body, then what are the targets you can assume that we can target this particular this plasma therapy so that we can get this effectiveness. So this is another challenge I want to say. And here I have done one of the HPLC analysis to this of the different patients. Around 73 patients I have taken their plasma, and I have done this analysis, HPLC analysis, to see what exactly the content of that particular plasma and which particular part of this one is effective to heal that particular areas. And in that case, I have seen some of the portion, the early eluting components. These are the components. These components are present in, means it is fluctuated. It is not similar. I have seen that all those patients, it is fluctuated. It is, might be it is the metabolites which are present in his plasma, and might be the supernatant what are the present in that one. So these are not the, I think it is not the part of that particular plasma which can give the healing of that one, because it is changing. But I have seen some of the portion after 30 minutes of this run time in plasma, means in the chromatogram, it shows some of the evidence, it shows some of the promising activities. I can assume that one. So it can be active for the healing of this one. And these are the, what are the, after 75 minutes, the components which I have separated or purified, these might be the antibodies or growth factors. And these, importantly, all these factors I have seen in all those patients. The concentration, important, the concentration varies, but it is present in that one. So I can assume that these particular portions can be effective for healing of these wounds or healing of these injuries. So might be this particular portion can be effective for the treatment of COVID-19 if we do any further studies or post-analysis studies to know what exactly it looks like. So I think something is present in this one to go further, to do any further studies on this one to understand its effectiveness on the COVID-19. Now here I have seen one of the graphs, I have done one of the estimated of that one. So this is the concentration of growth factors or antibodies. In the y-axis I mentioned, and intensity of infection per day I have mentioned. And this is the normal condition. This is the ulcer injury and in the infection. I have put in the 3 phases: early phases, middle phases, and healing phases. I think this is the very important, these slides. So from this one, we can guess that which particular part we have to take. Now, if I assume that this is the patients who have the infection, means COVID infections, if we consider coronavirus infections. Now, if that patient, this is the early sign of this one. Okay. In this case, the concentration of growth factors or antibodies, it is normal level. It is not that much higher. And it is the normal condition. If I see, I have seen that whenever any injuries or any ulcer with the patients have, the curve like this one, means in the middle of this one, it is the higher concentration. And once it is starting the healing of that one, it is going to the downgrade. So we can say, whenever the maximum is optimal intensity of that particular wounds or injuries or pain like that one, the nerve tissues might be, it accelerated the further concentration of these particular growth factors or antibodies or many other healing components which are present in that plasma, which be accelerated or increased that one. So it is naturally occurring. And I have seen whenever the patient will have the infections, there are the number of these particular antibodies concentration and growth factors which are higher, multifold, it is twice than that one. I have seen. Now, if they mentioned that we have to take the plasma of any healed patients, we can use that plasma because it contains the growth factors or antibodies we can use that antibodies or growth factors for the treatment of another patients who have the infections. But the problem is that which particular zone they will select for treating that particular patients, because in the middle portion that patients will not, we cannot take the in his plasma, because he at that time he is struggling to cure himself from that particular that COVID infections. So we cannot consider this initial phase because we do not know that means what exactly happening to that patients. It has the infection, early sign of that one. We cannot take it at that time. Middle portion we also cannot take, because in that condition the patient he need his own plasma for fighting that particular infection. Now third one is that if the healing phase, if we are considered, but healing phase what is happening, the concentration is decreasing. If it is decreasing, it coming to the normal level. So in this condition, if we take that one, would it effective to that particular patients? So that is another is the sign or is the dilemma for that one. So these are the challenges which I have mentioned. So this particular plasma therapy. So I have seen the success of this particular therapy in the infections, even in the diabetic foot ulcer patients. Diabetic foot ulcer patients will not heal with any antibiotics. But we have healed this condition with this plasma therapy and the PRP therapy. So this is the if it is correlated with this particular infection, they have seen that one. And it is my assumption, I am not a physician or a direct contact with the patients. So based on my previous experience on that one, so I put some of the assumptions, some of the challenges which I have faced. And I have put something of the assumption that would it effective or not. And if I have put some of these challenges, in that case, the concentration varies, the different concentration is effects of these age, diets, and all these things. So I think it has to be considered for treatment of the COVID corona infections. Thank you very much for listening me. And this is my next slide.
Yeah. And thank you, Pankaj. Thank you so much. Now, Vishal, any question for Pankaj?
Let me.
So by that time, Pankaj, you can just stop sharing the slide.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Pankaj, for the wonderful talk. I think somebody's mic is giving a lot of noise.
Atish. Okay. Yeah, it's a mute now. Okay. Pankaj, on the upside, there is a stop for sharing button. So you can stop sharing your slide.
Yes.
Upar. On the top, red.
There is no, I haven't seen any.
On top, red button, stop sharing. It's okay now. Now,
yes.
We'll go on to the next. Or Vishal, do you have any question for Pankaj?
I know. I just have a few comments. I like the way Pankaj presented the topic very passionately. I know he is very passionate about the plasma therapy. He always, he wants it to meet into more number of patients, and I clearly see his not just interest in the research, but his good intentions to benefit the patients. So that is something I really appreciate. We are scientists and we are professionals is one thing, but ultimately our objective has to be whatever we do has to be beneficial to the patients, and it has to help patients, it has to cure patients. So that passion and that zeal I could see in Pankaj and his presentation. I just have a few questions. In the interest of time, I'll maybe ask just one. How do we intend to administer these the plasma in COVID-19 patients? If at all we are able to recover it from the recovered patients or about to recover patients?
Yeah, actually, there are some of the doubts I have, because it is mentioned that it is the autologous. And in that case, this is the MCI given some of the restrictions. So the MCI mentioned that we cannot give that particular therapy to another patients, because it is the chances of the autologousness. We have to strictly follow what are the rules which have been mentioned by the MCI guidelines. So if they put some of the restrictions, so we have not gone beyond that one.
Okay.
Okay, that's.
I mean, there are people who are extracting plasma, the convalescent plasma from patients and recovered patients, and they are trying to administer it to the new patients. Maybe that is something that you can look into. And they're also extracting antibodies from the recovered patients, and they are So
I think
maybe the plasma alone, the MCI may have some objections, but if you can recover the antibodies or you can recover the convalescent plasma, then maybe that is useful.
Yeah, I think that we have to see, that means we have to characterize exactly what are present in that plasma, which are effective for treatment of that one. And it is not that much big task that if the antibody, because a lot of separation sciences scientists we are present in this world, it is not that much difficult task. If they isolated particular antibodies which are effective for healing that one, if we are concentrating on that one, further, if we do any molecular biologies or using any biotechnology techniques, so we can further multiply that particular antibodies, and then put certain any administration routes.
Yeah, I think this effort is already on by some companies. I think this effort is going on. There's not yet antibody that is in clinical trials, but the effort is certainly on.
Yeah, because we cannot retain the plasma of any patient, because the COVID it mentioned that long durations. So I don't think it is the good techniques for taking the plasma of that healed patient to cure another patient.
Okay, right. Thanks, Pankaj, for your presentation and your talk, and for the answers that you have provided. Let's move to the next one. Raman, you want to introduce the next speaker? Raman, you're on mute. Maybe I have to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. Now, by the time Prakash, you can unmute and you can start sharing your slides. So I will introduce the Prakash. Dr. Prakash Chandak, he is MS in Pharma. He has done his MS Pharma from Naipar Mohali in India in 2005. He has done his PhD in medicine, that is the PhD made in Uni Grace, Australia in 2010. He is currently working with the Intas Pharmaceutical in Ahmedabad till date as a assistant manager corporate business development. Prior to that, he has worked with various organizations on a various field or post. Assistant manager strategic planning and global IPR OCAD research center in Aurangabad. Duration was 2016 to 19. And senior scientist return Novartis Hyderabad in 2015 to 16. Scientist in Switzerland as well as in Australia. In scientist, he has worked in the Uni-Bred, Switzerland in duration of the 2013 to 2015. And also he has worked with Australia as a scientist in 2011. Prior to that, the research associated in Nicholas Piramal Research Center in Mumbai. The duration was 2005 to 2007. So he has a vast experience now in the different organizations as well as in the different fields. So now over to Dr. Prakash Chandak for his own topic. It's a very excellent, nice topic, business development in the regulatory market. Now over to Prakash.
Thanks, Raman and Vishal and all my colleagues and friends that we are using this kind of lockdown time for some kind of help to our profession and also trying to gain some knowledge. I would like to show some different views from which my colleague Atish and Pankaj showed. So what I would like to show a completely different facet of pharma industry. We always heard about generic, but what exactly generic means actually, and why there is so much noise in industry, why people are so passionate about to follow generic. So of course there is a business, that's why we follow the generic, yeah. But the way it is portrayed in India, that generic means something like a third standard or third grade medicine, but it's not. It's somehow people in India, especially the doctors and the pharmacists, are somehow misinformed, basically. So I would like to show you what from where this generic word derived from, and how much industry and why we are so as a pharma industry person, why we are so much passionate about regulatory market. So my today's topic is business development in regulatory market. So of course, we all know our pharma is a regulated market. It's not like anybody can start selling anything with claiming anything. It's not like magic or a kind of a grocery. So it has to follow certain set of rules by FDA, because our main body is FDA, and we have to follow their rules. So that's why we call it regulatory and regulatory bodies, and it is driven by regulatory bodies. That's why we call it regulatory market. And of course, it is applicable. It always look after safety and efficacy of any new chemical or biological or even generic products. So we always have to follow all the guidance of regulatory or FDA, we call it. Yeah. So for us, there are most important markets are USA, Europe, and Japan. Why? I mean, doesn't mean that India is not a regulatory market or Africa is not a regulatory market. It doesn't mean it. But our 80% or 90% business comes from these three markets. That's why we are always worried about USA, Europe, and Japan. Although Japan altogether is a very toughest FDA in the world. First, today, I will just focus on USA, because USA is the biggest pharma market in the world. And I would like to first introduce you three terms. First is a brand, means the innovator product, the innovator company. For example, Novartis, Pfizer, Sanofi. These are the kind of innovator companies. So they do from preclinical to clinical all the safety and efficacy studies, and we call them branded or reference product. Whereas there is a term called a new drug application, abbreviated new drug application, or ANDA, under the section 505J, where as a generic company, we only have to show our bioequivalence with the reference product or branded product. So you got my point. There is a reference product or branded product, and we are the generic. We are just producing exactly the same copy of the reference product or branded product, and we are just trying to show, okay, our product is also equivalent to the reference product, so branded product. So in India, we think there are a lot of brands, but altogether they are all branded generics. Yeah, they are not innovators. So in India, 99% market is a branded generic. So we all are taking or selling branded generic. So anyways, I will not deviate you. Let's again go back to US terminologies. So new drug application is an innovator. Second is generic. And third is 505B2. So it's like in between, not even new drug application or ANDA. It's in between. So where there may be some change in salt of API or route of administration. For example, from tablet to somebody has brought into the like auto injectors. So this could be the changes in the formulations. So we call it 505B2. So these are the three standard terms we should remember. And whole our industry is revolving on this. You know, India itself exports almost $40 billion generics only on this, the second term, generic. Yeah. So I would like to take you back from where the generic derived. In 1984, Hatch-Waxman's this commission thought to bring a beneficial drug at a cheaper price to the end users. So what the beauty of this act is, it's not only the innovator who can sell the product, but at the same time, after certain years of gaining profit from their innovation, even public or even the patient should get benefit. So that's why this industry or this act started. So, but at the same time, we should not, the innovator should not lose his motivation, because why then they will invent new drugs? Why to put so much effort? So to just give some benefit, they gave like a 5 years of exclusivity. Okay, you bring a new drug molecule to the market, just take 5 years of exclusivity. No one can launch the product except the innovator. No one can sell the product in the market, US market. But however, if a generic applicant or ANDA can file a dossier after completion of 4 years, okay, but can't launch. Okay, there are some other exclusivities. Like what if there are certain indications that only like 200,000 patients are there in US, and innovator can't recover their cost. So okay, take another 2 more years, 7 years of exclusivity or orphan exclusivity. If somebody brings a new indication to the same old approved drug, there is 3 years of exclusivity. So you can enjoy the perks from the FDA under this act. But generic also have an equal level playing field when they enter after certain years. Okay, so these are like US, Europe, and Japan are highly regulated because of agency and patents. There are 2 dimensions. One is regulatory dimension, which I already told you about the this kind of exclusivities. And there is another dimension of IP or intellectual property rights. So look, in general, the life of patent is 20 years. However, this granting patent take 3 years, and this drug approval process itself, it's a very tedious process, may take 5 years. Yeah. So that's why, look, if somebody gets a drug patent here and the patent term started, so if somebody launched the drug product here, this is like a kind of just to for your understanding. So the innovator can get this 5 years of exclusivity, and if it shows some pediatric benefits, also can get 6 months additional exclusivity. So here the only innovator can sell. If there is orphan exclusivity of 7 years, innovator can sell single-handedly for 7 years, and then thereafter we can file application here. But in NCE exclusivity, we can file application after 4 years. Okay, so this kind of regulatory exclusivity under this act we have. Till that time, as a generic, we can't launch. Yeah. So let's understand the second dimension in regulatory market, because we also have to respect the patents. Yeah, they are their properties because they have done a lot of efforts, research, resources. So there are, apart from the regulatory exclusivity, there are patents. Mainly we respect 4 patents as a generic. First is a molecule patent. Second is a polymorph patent. Although there in India, we do not respect or do not follow the polymorph patent. In India, we only follow the product patent now. But in US, product patent, polymorph patent, method of use, or we can call it indication patent, and dosing regimen. So we have to respect them. We have to find some, there are some loopholes how we can launch after 5 years, or at least after 10 years of drug product launch. Because innovator always try to interplay, exclusivities or patents or extending their patent life. Yeah. So there is impossible till date to overcome with product patent. Product we have to respect. If there is a product patent life left even after a drug product is been launched, and if there is still life of that drug product or molecule patent left for 10 years, we can't launch the product for 10 years. Okay, we have to respect regulatory, we have to respect the IP. Yeah. So, but in general, effective patent life is 14 years. Okay, but not all the time. In an average, innovator generally gets 10 years of this IP life, because there are a lot of many loopholes in the patent except the product patent. like for drug regimen and indication patents, we can go ahead. Yeah. So additionally, as a business person, we have, first we look at regulatory, second IP. Then we also have to, as a business development person, we also have to look at like from API source, whether it is of DMF quality. Second, we have to also understand the product development will not happen in months. Okay, it takes years, because we have to develop the product in pilot scale, then on scale up scale, and stability studies and all those. It takes, if the product is very complex, like paliperidone palmitate, these depot injections, it takes 6 years even to develop this kind of products. Or EpiPen, the well-known example of Mylan. Yeah, I mean, it took, 10 years, yeah, for Teva to launch. So we have to also understand these factors. Then BE studies should be done at proper approved sites, and then dossier submission. If look, there are like 4 indications, and there are 2 indications are protected and 2 are not by patent. Then we carve out, we call it section 8. Okay, and of course regulatory will take its own sweet time of approval. Yeah, it's, of course, it's a bureaucracy. So we have to understand not only the day you are ready with the product, but we also have to take in account that there is also a regulatory body will take also its own sweet time. So we have to plan our products, our selection process well within advance. I mean, the day baby born, we start working here as a generic. So let me take you through quickly through this chart. So as a business development person, first we look at whole therapeutic segment. Let's choose one of them or few of them, depending on our internal analysis and our, of course, our budget, our company's vision. Yeah, because product selection and planning we have to do of 5 to 8 years before. The generic you see in the market, a business development person like portfolio person or corporate development person, the team will do this work 5 to 8 or even 10 years back. That's why you could see this product. There's so much efforts, continuous analysis keep on happening. Of course, we have to choose, because depending on our company size, we can't like go after every TNIP in oncology. We have to choose among them. Yeah. Then, of course, I already showed you the IP, you know, there are a lot of changes. Of course, innovator always try to protect his own, you know, his property for long time as much as they can. Then there is a regulatory dimension. Already I showed you like about exclusivities and FDA timing. Of course, there is a time to scale up and the product to development and scale up. It will take also its own time. So we have to coordinate. We have to look after right from the inception till products get approved. And of course, we look after, of course, as a business development, we also have to look for its commercialization and of course the margins. Yeah. There is one beauty of Hatch-Waxman Act in US. If you are able to file your ANDA application first, and if you successfully overcome all the hurdles of IP and regulatory and approval, you will get 180 days, means 6 months exclusivity along with the innovator. You can sell your product. But it's so competitive nowadays. You're not only a player who's selling these or you are making these generics. So if there are like 10 applicants filing on the day 1, so everybody will share the exclusivity. If A files on day, if somebody some applicant get approval on day 1 and others get on day 50 or another third one gets on 60, so they will enjoy this much of exclusivity depending on their approval. So for us, the timing and the approval process and reaching to the market is the important. Whole margin of given product is depend on this. because after completion of 6 months, every generic can launch. If there are 100 players who wants to sell the product, they can sell. So imagine the price erosion. Imagine the gross margin erosion. So it's not, when you look at the IMS data, okay, Innovator was selling $100 and we can also sell at $90. It's not. The time will come after 180 days, we will start selling the same $100 pill to $2. So you can imagine pressure or the calculations. So whole timing is depending on this. How precise you select the product, you follow the product, you overcome all the hurdles of IP and regulatory, and you launch the product. Yeah. So as a business, just I will summarize my work and we go through this process every day because we have to be very efficient. We also first we look at, when we select the product, we look at the company's vision, kind of skills we have. Like, look, I mean, everybody don't have the skills of derma products or inhalers. That needs altogether a separate skill of manpower and the capacity. Of course, if we are small scale or mid scale pharma, we can't go after any NCE. Yeah, we have to limit ourselves because we can't fight with the big pharmas or Teva like players or Mylan. Yeah, for that sake. Second thing, we have, as a business development person, we have to look for the short-term and long-term policies or planning. In short run, like 5 to 7 years, which products we can launch, and in decade or so forth, what we can be after. So we always have to fulfill our basket because the price will keep on eroding. So we have to pour some more products to our basket so that we maintain our gross margins. Yeah. Then when we select the product, we always look at what is the position of this product. Like there are like A, B, C, D, E, F product. And now it's time to select C product because A and B already genericized. So we also have to evaluate what is the position of that product in that therapy class. Of course, we, as I told you, we had to watch IP and regulatory challenges. Another interesting dimension is competitive challenges because on day one, there might be 20 players selling same generic product. So we have to keenly watch every pharma player, not only in India, but in Europe and across the globe. Who are other pharma players are developing the same product? Based on that, we have to decide our margins, forecast, our investments. Yeah. And as I told you, the last point is market entry point. If you miss day one launch of generic, imagine how much price erosion you can expect. So whole game of generic industry, the dynamics and the profit is on entry of the market. At what time you can. There might be some plant issues, there might be some FDA issues, anything. But if you miss that chance by a week or by a month, yeah, then there are some commercial penalties of your own. Yeah. So there are some other challenges which a common people or other industry people or academicians or research people can't expect, but we always face them. There are a lot of lawsuits in US. There are a lot of, like, you know, there are some citizen petitions filed just to delay this generic launch. There are some, this kind of war between hidden war between innovators and generic players. So they interplay, we nicely interplay these games. Actually, sometimes we also have to pay the penalties. Yeah. There are some smart innovators like AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Teva even somehow, although Teva is a big generic company, but when it comes to innovator company, even Novartis, they smartly switch the product. Once they launch, for example, once they launch their product in capsule dosage form, they will switch to, okay, let's take a depot, injectable depot. And we already have started developing capsule dosage form and you will see, or the IR drug product, they switch to sustained release. So again, we have to play this snake and ladder game with them. Yeah. Then there are some innovators, smart innovators, and there are control products, drugs. We can't buy them for our BE studies. They are highly regulated. And innovator makes sure that nobody will get this RLD or reference product. So somehow they delay our BE studies. And this time keep on passing. Yeah. And then there is another threat for us. Although we have taken care everything, IP, regulatory, innovator, what if there is a new molecule come in that class, or new biologic come in the class? Then again, whole the calculation of forecasting and the gross margin goes drastically down. So yeah, but we have to keep very keen and very updated ourselves what is happening every day in the industry. We have to be very attentive and alert, and we have to also act accordingly. We have to change a lot of plans, our internal plans, decided plans accordingly. And we also have to keep update our whole internal F&D and regulatory, IP, supply chain, everybody in the loop who are connected with this. And then lastly, there are a lot of academicians like my friend like Pankaj and Atish. They keep on doing research. They bring new data. And one fine day we realize, okay, those results shown 10 years back are not the same as now today, or there is some impurities like ranitidine we are facing now. Now it's a blockbuster drug now out of shelf now because of impurities issues. These other threats keep on coming. So we also have to understand this dynamic as well as a business development person. When we select a drug product, and we, right from the inception to the launch, we have to take care of everything. Thank you.
Fantastic presentation, Prakash. Very nice insight into, some of these things we are aware of, but not in such detail. So thank you for bringing this such a nice presentation. And I have few questions. If I will check if there is any questions on FB. If not, or maybe I'll ask the first one and then I'll look for FB. So in case of, say, COVID-19 situation, which is an emergency, if an innovator company comes up with an antiviral or a vaccine, as a business development person, how do you look at it? Can you make generics of those? Can you file to the regulatory authorities, or what would be the patent protection and exclusivity for the innovators in case of COVID-19?
That's a very nice question, because we all now facing that threat, not only we, our whole globe. The thing is, patent, but so at least in India, there is government can, there is a, I forgot the section, like section 3 or 8 in Indian Patent Act, where
I think Prakash somehow is got disconnected.
Okay, so we'll move on to.
I think we'll continue. We go on with the last speaker, Raman, because we can. If there are any questions, I'll chat with him later. Raman, do you want to take over?
Yes, I'm audible now. Should we go into the last presentation?
Yes. Now that nobody is there to introduce you, can you introduce yourself so that please.
Fine, thank you so much.
I mean, we know that you have a very long and illustrious career in marketing, but we would like to know what you have, just an introduction. Yes, please, for the viewers, for the interest of viewers.
Fine. Thank you so much. So I had a good experience into the ground level. I started from the ground level. So once your ground level is strong, then you can build a very strong building. So that's how I have grown from the small to now the heading the marketing team into Entered Pharmaceutical as a vice president. Now coming on to the topic. So now there are the two changes are there in the marketing. Once you look at the market, so two topics that can be clubbed into together. Now the marketer in India as well as outside, those who is there in the pharmaceutical, they're struggling for the two things. One is effects on the pharmaceutical market and the sales. What is the current effect that we do have it onto our market as well as on the sales? Some companies, the sales has drastically gone down. Some companies, no, they're managing it very well. A second thing is the marketing operation strategically, it's like they're managing very well. At the beginning, there was a more drastic effect. So how it has been like the impacted onto it, and we'll see which are the various options now which is available when it comes to branding of these. This presentation will cover both the things. Now in this, I think 15 to 16 minutes of the discussions, these are the various points that I will like to cover it. First, that we will see after in this current time, what are the challenges that we are facing it, which will be the opportunity it will be there in the coming days, and how to like the tackle it. So when it comes to challenges, there is the reps cannot be visit to provider and the patients, limited visit to the healthcare professional. These are the challenges. Opportunities, use of the telemedicine, patient the portals, what we can address it. So when it comes to the pharma company are preparing for the scenario. In this scenario, the reps cannot visit to the providers and the patient, and are limited in their abilities to visit the healthcare professions. That is, we call it the SCP. And in that, the CDC has gone as far as the recommendation of the use of the telemedicine and the patient portals as the primary channel for the SCPs and the patient to interact. So now to overcome that interactions, two are the things it has been like the recommended by CDC. One is the use of the telemedicine and the patient portals. The unique challenges now existing, but there are also the opportunity to help the adjust to the challenges in the healthcare market and the sales. This online discussion will address the challenges, also elaborate onto the opportunities pharma marketers have to help their healthcare and customer, as well as the patients, and build the relationship with the both audience for the futures once this health crisis has passed. And in this, what will be like the different the branding opportunity that we will have it, that we will see. So what are the current challenges and the issues? Health and the life sciences, that is the HLS, companies are finding new ways to engaging their customer. In person engagement, is still the current standard that the pharma companies use to interact with their provider customers. Furthermore, many companies assume that the patient can visit the provider to continue to get the service and the treatment that they need. These standards practice are chasing and will likely to continue to change, as this is the behavioral trigger point for the industry. Now, new ways to engage the customer, interaction with the customer, patient visit, and standard practice are currently the challenges what we are facing it. What could be the way forward and opportunity that we call it as an opportunity? There is an immediate need to change the way that the HLS companies interact with the SCP and consumer. However, these changes will be also the position this organization for the successful future, as the current environment become the new norm. And HLS companies need to be refuel their market and the sales strategy for the new barrier their customer are facing while the implementing and the leveraging the key technology solution to facilitate the virtual engagement. So that's how the way forward could be change the way of interaction with the SCP and the consumer, change with the position organization for the successful future, re-evaluate it. We need to re-evaluate their marketing and the sales strategies, and leverage the key technology solution, facilitate the virtual engagement. Now, when we like take the considerations of the opportunity, to succeed in accomplishing the opportunities and the market changes now present to us, a dual approach of the strategy, re-evaluations and addition of the new technology system is very necessary. So when it comes to the first point, that is the market strategy, change the type of the messaging we use and channel we choose to communicate with our customer. Technology leverage, that leverage the technology that facilitates the person to person interactions without in-person contact. Now, these are the two things when we keep in the mind, what the suggestions that the marketing in form of the strategy that we can understand. The SCP market strategy understand the new driver and the barrier that exist for the HLS market, customers, and how we may need to be changed the way that we message and the channel we leverage. Understand for the HCP, the different pressures and the impact that HCP specialty will experience. Now, once we look at this, in one side, that is a private practitioner, as well as in the second side, that is the academic medical centers. On the top, you will be able to see the higher impact specialty and lower impact specialty of the doctors. The PCP and the immunologist are on the higher impact, whether it's from the private practice or in the academic. Lower impacted is the cosmetic and dermatology, as rightly addressed by the Prakash, and orthopedics. These are the lower impacted one now. Outbreak is affecting different SCP differently, and it's important to understand the different pressure and the barrier that exists for each kind of the specialty. Some, like the immunologist, for example, are the directly affected since they are the treating the current patient of the COVID-19. Oncologists do not directly treat, but the patients are higher risk for the contracting the disease. When it comes to the psychiatrist and every primary care provider will see an influx of the panic and their patients struggling to cope with the chores and uncertainty. Based on the different, they maybe exist the HCP. There are the three core challenges addressing using the marketing strategy. One is the new barrier, second is the ongoing care, limited access. So first, that is the new barrier. So what the new barrier had been arise. The HCP are under new pressures within the tax healthcare systems. This supply chains are disturbed. Their treatment protocol has changed and the level of the risk has increased. What consideration that we should have it? Instead of the filing the gap in the person sales rep visit with the Buy My Drugs, Min provide the SCP with a tool to facilitate the self-service channel. What the marketing strategy or the solution that we should have it? Be proactive with your suggestion and help the SCP understand the new best channel to reach out to form the information. Look to the leverage the assess the messaging and messaging on the change to provide the patient relationship. Sales rep solution, what they should do it. Actively introduce the current call plan and the information there. Also to leverage the SCP, engage the portal, self-service resources for the product information. Now coming to the second one, that is the ongoing care. When it comes to the ongoing care, these patients population are the large, still has actual chronic and illness. They still need the medications and the medical attention too. Considerations, the people will still need access the information to medicine and healthcare services. The pharma marketer need to be ensured these are still available. The drug should be available. What should be the marketing solution? Develop the message, partner with the telemedicine service and the leverage the pharmacy delivery network to ensure your patient get the care they needed right now. Sales rep solutions, rep can be continuously to provide the information and resources that the SCP level through the email and the SCP engagement plan. Now coming to the third, that is the limited access. In the limited access, many patients still needed to visit the provider office to refill the prescriptions and to get a co-pay cards. Considerations, most SCP are accustomed to see their patient in the office. What should be the marketing solution that we should have? Consider taking your existing co-pay cards and digitalizing them or the create digital channel so that the patient can request their prescription to ship to them. Also, the evaluate the telemedicine opportunities with respect to the relevant disease state. What should be the rep? He should do it. Leverage the SCP engagement portal as a tool that the SCP can be used to find the resources on the assess and their own times. As an approval email to drive the communications with the digital co-pay cards. So now, along with these three, okay, there will be the consumer market strategy. What is the consumer in the market? They should do it. Again, the three layer of the the points that will coming in the minds. One is the lack of the clarity, unforced impacts, and limited access. So lack of the clarity, it can be handled through the digital channel. Unforced impact, it can be the CNS space, and limited access, it can be the telehealth communications. When it comes to the heading that we are going to discuss in this the PPT, that is the in addition to the challenge we face with the marketing to the SCP, there are also the 3 core challenges that the consumer face that can be addressed through the marketing and the sales strategy. So first point that we will try to address it through the marketing strategy, that is the lack of the clarity. Patients are uncertain about the how they should interact with the SCP and where to find the informations. Digital channel should be the enlisted the leverage new messaging. Telecommunication consumer, what you are doing to help them their illness in the a lifetime of the uncertainty or the lack of the access to the healthcare. Coming to the second point, that is unforced impact. Unforced impact, there are certain types of the patients who are indirectly affected. Considerations, some patients will certainly mental illness and high anxiety level, global crisis like this can be the powerful trigger. Solution, what should be solution? For the products in the CNS space, provide the message around the resources and can help your patient in the time of the uncertainty. And last not but least, limited access. Patient have a limited access to the provider. What should be the considerations? There are the many digital channels that can be leveraged to fulfill in the gap. Solutions findings, provide the message through the digital channel where the patients or the caregiver can be finding the information from the sources other than the SCP. Ensure that there are the ways that the CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control, is recommending the use of the telehealth where the possible, and that make the health plan have a wide health that other face temporarily. Now covering the all this, okay, now coming to the technology recommendation for connecting with the SCP and how do we can connect with our the product that become the visibility or the product branding. To changes to the marketing strategy need to be during this crisis are highly dependent on the marketer ability to power up, to use the data to informations each interaction with the SCP. Fortunately, there are the already numerous integrated technology that exist for the SCP and consumer that are facilitated continuous engagement without the requiring an in-person interactions. This technology can be automated targets, the specific messaging on emerging channel and the platform. When it comes to all the message, there can be a product, can be a branding. Our organization branding can become into the picture. These are the various platform technology where we can forward branding. We can increase the visibility. So visibility onto the digital platforms that will be creating more space into our doctor minds so that our products get registered and it can become the strong branding along with them. So these are like the case and the success of each strategy that they are necessary to accommodate the changes in the consumer SCP behavior drive new marketing strategies. Now, when it comes to the orchestrated platforms, which are the platform currently we do have it. Salesforce Marketing Clouds can be used to get the personalized messaging. So that message, it can be reached to the all field force as well as from the field force, it can go to all the doctors, to your customers, to rapidly inform them to change and the new channel of the interactions. We need to inform them which are the new channel it is emerging, what are like the messaging proper that they required it as per the requirement, go ahead with that. Telemedicine and the patient portals, telemedicine tools and the partner services and the new channel for the patients to reach out for the information. Now, when we take this technology into considerations, what is the solution? A tool that allows the reps to have the virtual meeting with the SCP shows the presentation, closed loop marketing, that is the CLM, and the meet one-to-one or one-to-few. Use the cases a rep, use the SCP CRM approval emails, reach out to the SCP who needed the understanding the side effect of the products and the set up the meeting, run through the CLM continuous side effect. Okay, another side when it comes to the solution, second and the third, when it comes to second, the way to share the personalized link with the doctors in order to visit the portal and the log in the see the specific contents, that is the presentation as well as the PDF file we can share with the doctor. A tool for the leveraging pre-defined MLR approved email content to the change the way the rep interact with the SCP from the personal to digital. Most company leverage with the digital platforms, but now we may needed to reply on the phone call instead of the in-person meetings. So now we know that we cannot meet the personally. So the emails as well as the personal phone calls, sharing the presentation with them, these are the digital tools that we do have it. So the representative or the medical rep sends the approved mail to the SCP that include the link to the SCP engagement portal. The SCP views the presentations or the CLM contact, and the rep can be seen that look at the click on that button, right? So now coming to the for the field force or the what like the currently people they can do it when it comes to like the product promotions, call planning. The medical representative or reps possibly enabled to visit the hospital or the group of the practice means that the call planning must be re-evaluated, because the call planning it's associated with the brandings, and your brand can get more space. So brand can get registers, product visibility goes high through the digital channels. So rep needed to be trained on the how properly they leverage the SCP or the doctor engagement, and they need to change the manage the success, ongoing success. This will be likely to be a new standard for the engagement, and organization will have a restructure their sales operation and their strategies. So these three ways: call planning, re-evaluated, training. We need to train all the field force on the particular now the new tools, ongoing structure, restructure the sales operations. Now coming to the branding opportunities, where currently we do have the pharma products as well as the good marketer strategies. What we have it, we can have the call centers. We can take their help with the various platforms that we can be initiated with the key or the passwords with the starting with a brand name. So brand can get associated with that. Market orchestration systems, telemedications, partner, and digital copay. Wherever you will get this kind of the systems, kindly do the branding associated with that. So with this, thank you so much to all for paying attention onto new branding opportunities and current changes into marketing and the sales management. So now we are coming to the last question and answer part, which can be thrown onto me as well as the Prakash. And if there is no any questions on the Facebook, then we will go on to the last part. Now, Vishal.
I think with your presentation fresh in my mind, and I think Prakash is not around still.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead with asking you some question. So the last slide showed market orchestration. What is that exactly?
See, now once we look at the last month scenario and current month scenario, the changes is very clear that we need to do the changes into the marketing as well as our technology need to be emerged into our existing field force. Current challenges, they cannot go to the hospital, they cannot meet the doctors. But there are some technologies now it can be emerging because of the current times or as per there. When it comes to the call centers, there are the various the CDC has recommended the telemedications, so we can offer the call center to doctors or hospitals. The marketing orchestral systems, there are the
that's what platforms. I was a bit confused. I didn't understand.
Yeah. So there are the various platforms now on the telephonically doctor they can be the guide there the patients as well as the caregiver, they can guide them properly. They can suggest nowadays the medications onto a telephone also. So prescription they can change when they have the virtual meeting with their patient. They can change the prescription of the patient also. And now the one more challenge that they have, they cannot go into the hospitals, they cannot pay. So online digital systems is the better way of now the paying to the hospital as well as the charges of the doctor. So this how the need of the technology need to be very clearly trained to our all field force, so that they can work from their home and they can do the best and the better branding, preferring to all the medical fraternity.
Yeah, I think your company, looking at the quality of slides that you presented, were very nice, very good slides. And looking at the way you presented, it looks like your company is very much ready for having a business continuity plan for in this COVID-19 scenario. I think you are very much prepared, in terms of your branding and product development. So that's really good. I hope the other companies are also following the similar or maybe different patterns. But in the end, as you said, yes, we have to learn to adapt to these situations, and then if we can do something better, that would be really great. I just have one more question, Raman. I think you went on mute. Raman, you went on mute, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the question was, in all this digital, I totally understand and appreciate this. Do you see, as a branding and product development professional, do you see some negatives of this digital marketing? Any negatives that come to your mind?
Yeah, within the MCI guidelines, if you do a proper the brandings onto the digital platform, there's a more acceptable by all type of the specialty as well as the medical fraternity, and by keeping the all the do and don'ts in the mind, that you should go ahead with your product brandings in the digital platform. But since you have rightly pinpointed, these are like the two version of the drugs. One is the generic and the branded. Branded, they have more the MCI guidelines. So stick to a MCI guideline as per there, that you can go ahead with like your branding product.
Vishal, I want to ask one question to Raman.
Yeah, please go ahead, Pankaj.
Raman, I have seen that right now there are some of the companies just like NetMed or 1mg, like that one. They are selling those medicines online now. Okay, would it hurt to any company just like your company? They are branding like that one. So is there any competition you are facing, or any competitions you think that if they are the middle as opponents like that one? For the marketing,
this all the platforms what currently the digital platform the pharma company they are using it, so it has been drastically gone up on the very high percentage wise. Okay, so nowadays the competition, of course, it is increasing, but it's a net competitions, and we will look at that. This is the requirement of the current time, and as per that requirement, yes, everyone is like going ahead with that. The way that you will go by adopting the new technologies and using the new platforms, yes, you will gain the more and more success into it.
Right. I don't have any more questions, Raman. I think that's all for today.
So we can go on to the last part now. Word of thanks.
Sure.
So from my side, thank you so much. Within the short time of the span, so everyone has accepted the invitations, especially Vishal. So from his the very busy schedules that the Vishal, he has managed to come and spend the 2 hours with us. We can understand in the day and night you are working on to like the finding the new solutions for the fighting the COVID. And as a scientist, of course, that you are the forefront, and 24/7 that you are working from the home. With that busy schedule also, you had given the good times and managed the very well show. Increases the confidence level of all our speakers, including Atish and Pankaj and Prakash and me all. And well said questions that you have asked to us. Yes, we try to give the best answer for that. The next, Atish. Yes, Atish is like always he's a multitasking person. If you look at his the biodata I was looking at the night, so it has the various ways and the areas. He is like the keeping himself into a different shoes. That is again the challenging for the everyone, but he has made it very successfully, and he's managing very well. And the way he's like the way ahead to the all others, it's become the learning for all of us how we should be multitasking in the different areas by looking at his own professions. Coming to the Pankaj, and coming back from the outside and the managing their own research laboratory and the team of the good number of the people that the Pankaj has given at the time with his busy schedules by like the managing his own the research team as well as the coming and the addressing to us by keeping us in the mind that he has given his valuable time. Thank you so much, the Dr. Pankaj. And now the Prakash is not connected with us, but Prakash also, he is every night, every day in the night till the 1 or 2 o'clock, he is always the busy. But in this busy schedule also, he has given us the proper guideline onto differentiation of the generic brands and the branded drugs. It is very important while like the addressing it. And as like the many people, as like the pharma people, as well as the many people, those who is like the junior or senior to us, they had that questions. He tried to give the best solution for them. And I hope Last, thank you so much to all the Facebook friends as well as the audience which has been the online to us by listening us close to 2 hours from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So thank you so much for like your attention, and thanks to all the Government College of Pharmacy, all the juniors as well as the senior, those who has helped us for advertising this program, and thank you so much. Now,
thank you everyone, and wish you all the best to everybody in your research, in your product development, in your careers. All the best, and I hope Raman will meet again sometime soon. Right? Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Yeah, we will mute for the 2 minutes, and then
okay, sure.
We go offline.